Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Here, I'll show you what is driving our problems, okay? You know there was another murder this weekend, right? Driven by another deranged shooter who also used fire and exploding devices in his car. Why? Poison propaganda. And I'll get to that, how we know. But if the guy seems to check familiar boxes, it's not a coincidence. This is going to keep happening. And the reason that we keep seeing deranged people killing for political reasons, and again, you're going to keep seeing it, is because these people are the canaries in the coal mine for the level of poison in our politics. They are uniquely, sometimes, mostly susceptible, more so than others, to online radicalization because of whatever mental or emotional struggle they have. No, I'm not saying people who struggle with emotional or mental problems are violent per se. They are not. It is what they are exposed to, and some are more susceptible than people who do not have those struggles. And that's why we keep seeing similar murderers. So many messages of violence about division and how horrible one side is versus the other. And those messages are amplified by social media platforms for profit by design. The man who committed the violence is to blame. And how to stop it is no simple question, but it has to involve dealing with this. You will never know how impressive the catch is that I just made, by the way. The most powerful man in the media just wrote something that would get him fired if he worked for any self-respecting company, let alone a media platform, okay? If we see an attack on the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, remember this moment. Musk sent this after the shooting with a screenshot from the Jewish group labeling Christian identity as extremist. Musk wrote, "The ADL hates Christians, therefore it is a hate group." Everything about this is wrong. And to be honest, I first went to Elon and wanted him to explain this to me about, because, the guy's a genius, and he told me to piss off, and then it said I can't send him messages anymore. And I find that regrettable. I was talking to him about maybe doing something on Twitter not too long ago, talk to his people. I don't believe in just, trashing platforms. I think that we all have to be involved in how to get him to a better place. But, he makes whatever choice he makes. I don't hold it against him personally, but I do hold how he runs his business and how he handles himself. I do take that personally. How could he think that the attack on the Mormon church in Michigan was inspired by the ADL? So I guess he does see some limits on free speech because he doesn't let me have my messages with him. I just wish he would limit his own speech. He must know that that report can't reasonably have anything to do with what just happened. First of all, the ADL report that he was referencing is from 2017, okay? I would also hope that a genius like him would know that the Christian identity movement has nothing to do with people like me who identify as Christian. It is a fringe fanaticism that is a well-worn hate movement, well documented for decades by the FBI and other groups. It's just the word Christian is in there. It has nothing to do with Christianity. These people believe nothing Jesus taught. They peddle that Jews are satanic offspring of Eve and the serpent, while non-whites are mud peoples created before Adam and Eve. You want to know what the Christian identity movement believes in? Look, this is what you want to defend. This is what you want to amplify. This is what you want to put above the safety of Jews in America. Christians oppose these savages, okay? How could you confuse the two? That's the wrong question. I don't think Elon was confused. And no, I don't think it's his autism. I think he knows this is what works on social media because he designed it to work this way. Why else would you appear to blame a murder of Mormons on Jews right after the event? In such an incendiary way, a reckless way, a way that should not be amplified to 200 million followers. But you know the answer. Why does Megyn Kelly yell at college kids on campus when it's supposed to be about debate with decency? Why is Don Lemon, my former colleague, calling white men stupid, weak bigots when he's married to one? Same reason Elon said Jews hate Christians. Because you've seen every one of those moments all over your For You pages. Because that's what resonates. That's what gets views. That's what gets clicks, because that's how the platform is designed. So are you really surprised at what we saw at the Ryder Cup? Are you really surprised that people have forgotten that this is a game of decorum and that you're supposed to represent your country as something other than a bunch of a-holes? Are you really surprised that a comedian influencer was there drumming up vulgar, whatever moments? This is what gets rewarded. Why do you think we have people shouting "Globalize the Intifada" on campus and running for office? This is what is being rewarded. And the trophy is a following: fame, cash flow, and scenes like this. What we saw this weekend. This is what it brings. For all the money, for the reach, for the fame, the resonance. This is where it leads. How do we know? A local politician who was going door to door this month spoke to the Mormon murderer. Lucky he's alive, right? The shooter described Mormons as the Antichrist, and the politician said he recognized what he was saying as standard anti-LDS Latter-day Saints, that's the Mormon church's name, talking points that he has seen on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. As long as social media is a free pass for whatever can sell ads and drive engagement, and by that I mean enragement, because that's what Elon and the other tech bros are really about. They've made the biggest fortunes in media history peddling the worst of humanity to humanity. There will be more violence. Don't be surprised, because you, and certainly Elon and the others, know why. So there's a lot for us to work on and to fix. But we reward Congress for refusing to act. That's what we reward. That's how you win. I will stop them. Social media, fixing the immigration system, a spending bill, right in the Constitution as the primary duty. But Congress seems more focused on who will get blamed for doing nothing for the shutdown. The president met with the party leaders. Did much change? Take a look.
Democrats are fighting to protect the health care of the American people. And we are not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of everyday Americans.
They want to talk about how to fix American health care policy. Let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together. But let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do. And the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown.
Let's see if we can do any better. You know, NewsNation is the only network that insists that members of both parties come on together and make the case together. And I love it. And I thank the members of Congress who come and join. There aren't many, but there's a growing number. New York Republican member of Congress, Mike Lawler, faithful, comes on, makes his case. I respect it. Texas Democrat member of Congress, Vicente Gonzalez. Good to have you, Vicente. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
So,
thank you for having us.
Hey, Mike, Vicente, what do you think? Shutdown or no shutdown? If you had to guess right now, what do you think? Mike?
I think, unfortunately, we're headed towards one, hopefully not too long. But, we passed a continuing resolution through the House last week. Only one Democrat joined us, Jared Golden of Maine, in supporting a clean CR, which, by the way, is a continuation of the spending levels and the policy riders that were negotiated during the Biden administration. So, to me, this is very simple. There's a clean CR at the Senate desk. They can pass it today, tomorrow. keep the government open and funded so that we can negotiate a final appropriations bill. And by the way, deal with some of these other issues, including the ACA subsidies, which I'm a co-sponsor of legislation to extend for a year. My fundamental view on this, Chris, I criticized my Republican colleagues last Congress, those that wanted to shut the government down under Joe Biden, those who wouldn't support a CR. I am criticizing my Democratic colleagues today. I've been consistent in this. We have to keep the government funded and open. It's foolish. It doesn't do anything to serve anybody.
I think the only thing that should happen on a shutdown, or what should happen first, is that you guys shouldn't get paid. Vicente,
by the way,
the Democrats say
I won't be taking my pay, just so you know.
Good, lunch will be on me. Vicente, the Democrats say, hold on. They won't let us debate anything. This is the only time we have any leverage. And they gave money to the Defense Department, and they're taking it off the backs of poor people getting their health care. How do you substantiate that?
Well, let's begin with the premise that the Republicans are in the complete majority. They should have the votes on their own to pass any legislation, especially one of these simple CRs that they call very clean. I hope that we can get through this and not have a government shutdown. It's in the best interest of the American people.
Vicente, in the House, they do. In Congress, you've got the supermajority rule. You've got the 60-vote rule. That's why they can't do it.
Right. I think they can continue to work through it. But let me tell you what's preventing the Democratic side from pushing on this. We have a healthcare crisis looming upon us. 4 million people will lose their healthcare if we don't get this premium enhanced extension in this CR. Also, we haven't talked about the Farm Bill, which expires. The Farm Bill funding expires next month. The majority of the programs right now, our farmers are going on in bankruptcy right now. They can't export their food. They don't have labor. They're getting killed. And these were all Trump supporters. I think we need to take a look at these. I have a lot of farmers in South Texas in my district. I'm looking out for them. I want to assure that we have that funding when we get this deal done. I hope we can get it done. We're not that far apart. We just need to sit down and work through this and be reasonable and not be hijacked by the extremes.
Mike, how do you feel about the fact that the tax cuts are going to be locked in? The Defense Department got a pass. Doge wound up being more fugazi than fact. And now it seems like the tax cuts are getting paid for by cutting aid to the poorest people, a lot of whose are in MAGA states.
Well, first of all, if we didn't pass the tax bill, you would have had the standard deduction cut in half. You would have had the rates increase on every single American. The alternative minimum tax would have come back in full force, which in a state like New York would have been disastrous. We were able to negotiate an increase in the SALT cap. That will benefit, in my district, 90% of my constituents will be able to fully deduct their state and local taxes. For New York, the average New Yorker is going to see a $4,000 tax cut. So this whole notion that this was, tax cuts for the billionaires and the millionaires is false, number one. Number two, we have to actually look at the changes we made when it comes to Medicaid. Medicaid doubled, over the last 5 years. The rate of growth was unsustainable. And when you look at the changes we made, we said, number one, eligibility.
But Mike, that rate of growth, hold on, Mike, that rate of growth is because you have a growing affordability crisis, not because of fraud. And the majority of the growth is in MAGA states.
Oh, no, Chris.
It's not waste, fraud, and abuse. These work rules are not about waste, fraud, and abuse, Mike. You just don't have the margins in there.
Chris.
The numbers tell the story, Mike.
Chris, respectfully, when you look at the numbers, look at New York State, Tom DiNapoli just came out with a report, the New York State Democratic Controller. $1.2 billion were spent by New York State on non-New York State residents' Medicaid premiums. How is that even possible? How does that happen where New York State is spending $1.2 billion on people who don't live in New York State? This is the fundamental problem. So what we did, we put in place eligibility verification, citizenship verification, work requirements. The provider tax, this is something that everybody agrees has been a scam for decades, where the states get more federal dollars without doing a state match. So we're saying instead of 6%, you can be at 3.5. It doesn't start phasing in until 2028. You look at the state-directed payments. Biden changed it from a 1-to-1 ratio with Medicare and Medicaid to putting Medicaid at private insurance rates. We're saying starting in 2028, that's going to go back to a 1-to-1 ratio, which is what it always was. So you actually have to look at the policy changes that were put in place. Not this total number that people want to focus in on. It's a question of the policy.
One thing we're not talking about that we should be talking about is
Vicente.
the extreme Medicare cuts. $500 billion for senior citizens across the country is going to be devastating. And it takes about $1 trillion of healthcare funding out of the system across the country. This is going to shutter places, healthcare providers in my district. And the SALT tax is a great for some places with high earning, high valued properties, but not everywhere. Certainly in Texas and in my district, that doesn't have much of a benefit.
Yeah, Texas
Well,
has seen some of the highest property. Texas has seen some of the highest property tax increases in the country. So it'll help you.
The property values are not really helped by
the property values aren't as high. Both of you are right. You have a growing tax base, but you're not where New York is or certain parts of California. But remember, Mike, remember who stuck us in New York? It was Trump, who kept the SALT taxes in place to punish New York. Okay,
I opposed it then, and it's why I fought to get it done, and we were able to get a 4x increase in this deal.
I think that, look, you got to get past this brinksmanship. You two aren't driving it. I know that, and I respect you coming here in good faith. But we do have an untenable situation. If you want to cut the budget, I'm with you. I mean, everybody knows we're spending way too much money ever since the pandemic. But to not even touch the Defense Department and to now be finding ways to take it out of services to the most vulnerable is just a bad look, and it is driving a populist movement against the president and his party. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's real and it's extant. We'll keep talking about it. I got to jump. I hope this doesn't happen, but if it does, you're both welcome to come back here. Mike Lawler, thank you for being a fair broker. Vicente Gonzalez, it's good to have you. Best to both of you doing the work of the people. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. The president said his crackdown on crime could be coming to you next. Look, I don't believe legally or from a policy perspective that the National Guard is the answer to crime anywhere unless someone is invading us, okay? Now you see him in Portland to take on protesters and to protect what he called our ICE agents under siege. Local police and politicians aren't asking for this. Who's right? Let's debate the fix. The president has made crime an issue on the national level, and that is very rare, right? Policing is really a state issue. And ordinarily, our frustration is that the federal government doesn't seem to really be able to do anything that matters. The president has changed the game on this, but how? Using the National Guard. It is a dicey legal proposition. I really don't think it would pass any kind of muster of an emergency if it were taken to the courts, and I'm a little surprised that hasn't happened more. Maybe it will now, sending National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon. Here's the catch. ICE agents are absolutely getting a hard time doing the job that they have been tasked to do. It's not the men and women's fault. What do you want them all to quit their job? But they're being told to do these things, right? Here's the political rub. If you don't like or want the president's help, you look like you're soft on crime. And that is a good political move for the president. But I don't know where it gets us. So, Portland is the latest. I want to debate this. So let's bring in two men who understand the problems, first of all, that ICE faces. And I know what a lot of you are going to say. Yeah, they should quit their job. I don't agree with you. I don't blame the men and women who are doing their job until I start getting credible reports that they are doing the job the wrong way. Okay, that will always take up here. Former acting DHS secretary in the first Trump administration, Ken Cuccinelli. Former ICE director in the Obama administration, John Sandweg. And again, John, Ken, I stipulate on this. ICE agents are being given a hard time. I get that Newsom made a political play of saying no masks here. Hey, they're worried about their families. It's not like they're trying to have impunity for what they're doing on the streets. So that's one kind of politics. But Ken, you're a much superior legal mind to mine. Do you think you have a good legal argument to be sending the National Guard in the way the president is?
Yeah, there is a good legal basis for it. Look, I mean, a lot of people fall back on the Posse Comitatus Act. Interestingly, President Hayes signed that in 1878 and promptly sent the Army to Arizona as a police force for a year and a half. And the next president, Garfield, sent the Army to New Mexico. So the people closest in time to putting that in place used the Army not to back up police, which is what we're talking about in the case of ICE, but to take on the role themselves. So, you know, the president has a lot of flexibility under the so-called Insurrection Act in situations other than insurrection, where he can use the military anywhere he believes that he lacks the federal resources to do the job. And we're actually seeing ICE being impaired in places like Portland and Chicago to the point where they have trouble doing their job. So I think the president is on good legal foundation. And I think the reason you're not seeing many lawsuits is when state AGs drill down on this, the Democrat AGs, they're finding exactly what I just told you, Chris.
John, what are the risks to the ICE people by having National Guard there to make them safer? I know intuitively you'd say, well, no, it's less risk because there's National Guard, but we're hearing different reports that they're worried about how this raises the temperature.
Yeah, Chris, this can draw out more protesters. I mean, the number one rule when you do this stuff is you don't want to do anything to exacerbate the situation. Don't make it worse. Part of the problem here, though, is that, you know, by deploying the Guard, they themselves become a symbol of this occupying force, which draws more protesters, lends itself to more chaos. Look, there are threats to these ICE agents. We saw it in Dallas. We've seen it across the country. We've got to protect the men and women at ICE. But I think the better way to do this is to better cooperate with our local partners, that they can serve as a neutral force, keep them out of the way. Some of this stuff, Chris, to be honest with you, I scratch my head at it. I've been to that Broadview facility in Chicago multiple times. I don't understand how the local police haven't cordoned off an area where people can exercise their First Amendment rights without getting in the way of law enforcement. But put that aside for a moment. I do worry that by deploying the Guard, you only exacerbate the situation, bring more tension, and bring more protesters.
Yeah, Ken, what happens with the God forbid?
I agree with a lot of what John said.
Go ahead, bud.
I agree with a lot of what John said, but the fact of the matter is, in some of these places like Portland and Chicago, while what John said makes perfect sense, meaning cordon off an area for protesting, the local authorities are being directed by their political masters not to do that. When I was dealing with Portland violence through the summer of 2020, we had 340 officer injuries in one summer, 340, Chris, and the mayor was pulling his police back. The Governor Brown, then Governor Brown of Oregon, wouldn't bring the National Guard, and at that time, President Trump laid back, and the violence continued and continued and continued. So I don't necessarily agree with John on the point that you exacerbate the problem. You can bring enough support to bring peace to the circumstances without stopping people's ability to protest, peacefully, of course, and have their say. But priority one for this president is and should be keeping his own law enforcement officers safe. And if that takes National Guard or military, then he ought to use them. And he has the legal authority to do it.
Well, he might have the legal authority to do it. I don't agree with your analysis completely. I also haven't done as much research as you have, but there's a reason that they usually wait for the governors to ask before committing these resources. And
Sure.
I do think there's another factor of this. The ICE men and women
cooperation is a better way to operate.
100%, but they're paying the price for some dubious policy choices. Due process, they are pushing the envelope on purpose, as you know, Ken. And look, I get testing legal boundaries. That's what they're there for, is to be tested in terms of where a particular administration finds its efficacy point. And then when it goes too far, you get sued and you figure it out. But these men and women are paying that price. John and I have talked about it a couple of times here. And that's why people are pissed. And so, you know, it's not like, oh, these cities are just all filled with bad people. Let's send in the National Guard and get rid of them. Let's see what happens next. I think there should be litigation on the issue, but I welcome both of you guys here to talk about it. And I do feel for the people who are being roped up and communities getting destroyed. I feel for the ICE men and women who have to wear masks because they're worried about their families. We got to be able to do better than this. Gentlemen, thank you for being part of the conversation. We'll do it again. Be well until then. All right? All right, I'm going to take a break. John, thank you as well. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So Trump met with, so I get all these messages today. They ended the war in the Middle East. They ended the war. How? How did they end the war? How? Did Hamas say yes? This bunch of bloody terrorists, that you really believe that they're going to sign on to a deal that takes power away from them? They kill as a point of passion. Bibi Netanyahu signed on. He says he'll do the deal. Some of the surrounding Arab countries say we like the deal. Then why don't they get Hamas to do it? What is the reality here? Who can make Hamas do what has to be done, which they refuse to do? The answer is next. Are we closer to peace in the Middle East? I got to tell you, the job of the planners in terms of the deal points, pretty good, this 20-point plan. And I get why Arab leaders in the region think that it should be agreed to. And I think it's impressive that Israel's prime minister has signed on. Where's Hamas? Hamas says they are giving it a good faith review. Terrorists are giving it a good faith anything. Look, this is where we are. I still think that the fundamental dynamic is Arab League nations forcing Hamas to step down, or that they will take them out themselves. That's what I think has to happen. Let's bring in the guests, two much better minds on this than mine. Okay? So we have former Middle East negotiator for the State Department, Aaron David Miller. And it's not just that I love him and respect him personally. He's worked with administrations in both parties. So he's just like a unique player within the space, and he understands the demography and the geography in the Middle East so well. And the co-director of the Urban Warfare Project, whose pedigree speaks for itself, is Mr. John Spencer. Now, John, you are the most sanguine among the three in terms of this deal having a chance to get hammered out. Why do you believe terrorists like Hamas would agree to any kind of deal?
I don't think they will. I am hopeful, and that offer has been given with every bit of condition, every concern, no forced displacement, immediate aid, immediate withdrawal of Israeli forces. But I'm so encouraged that this plan, for the first time, has a clause in which if Hamas does not accept, it immediately moves forward. And then I'm more impressed by those Arab countries you talked about, Jordan, Qatar, Indonesia, Turkey, UAE, who have said yes to the deal, as in they agree that this deal is the path of peace. People have forgotten what war looks like, and that's been problematic for over 2 years. This is what peace looks like, in my opinion.
Aaron, how are you seeing it?
I mean, I'll give you a few takeaways. Takeaway number one, Donald Trump succeeded in doing what Joe Biden could not, which was getting the Prime Minister of Israel to agree in principle, let's support the plan. He did it without threatening the conditioning or restricting of U.S. military assistance. He did it without introducing UN Security Council resolutions criticizing Israel or voting for someone else's. That's number one, and that's significant and positive. Number two, you're not going to get, it seems to me, for all the reasons John knows as well as I, a clean yes from Hamas. What you're going to get is a yes, but. And there is no timeline or deadline for the Hamas response. So it could take some time. If it's a yes, but, Chris and John, the next step, frankly, is Benjamin Netanyahu will say it's a no. Donald Trump is going to have to make a decision. Is the Middle East souk open for negotiation? If a yes, but is a no in Donald Trump's mind, then I think, guess what? Diplomacy is closed for the season, and the Israelis will resume their Gideon Chariots 2 operation against Gaza City, where the last remaining Hamas commander who is making the decisions, Izzadin al-Haddad, will have to make a decision as to whether or not he's prepared to be flexible on any of this. But let's be very clear. If the souk is opened, we are at the beginning, not the end, of incredibly complicated negotiation on every single element of this plan. Who or what Palestinians are going to become part of the international mechanism? Who or what is going to serve on that international board with the president as chairman of the board? How are you going to get key Arab states to deploy and shoot Palestinians if necessary when the Israelis will not abandon the right to prevent or preempt and will not agree to leave Gaza? I don't care what Netanyahu's agreed to, probably accepting a perimeter, a kilometer or two running the length of the strip. But in the wake of October 7, you are not going to get those communities, the thousands of Israelis who were part of the Gaza envelope communities, to return without guarantees. And Arab forces right now are not in any position without guarantees from Trump to deploy their forces, Indonesians, Turks, Emiratis. It won't matter. They're not going to put themselves in position to kill Palestinians.
Well, that's the fundamental problem, right, John? They're all brothers until it comes time to do something where you got to take ownership of Palestine. You know, one of the confounding things domestically is it's getting hotter and hotter for Trump domestically on this issue. You now have people coming forward. You saw in the UN last week recognizing the Palestinian state. It's the first time I've ever heard of supposed civilized nations recognizing a state that is headed by a terror organization. But that's where we are right now. So how much time do you believe until Israel says too much time?
That's not spelled out in the clause, but Israel hasn't, just to be clear, stopped the operation right now. They're actually in the center of Gaza City right now. Evacuation is about 250,000 of the million civilians have been evacuated. Israel's continuing operations, closing with and destroying terrorists. But again, this deal is what no president in 50 years has been able to say. Things like there will be a path to a Palestinian state, potentially, although the wording isn't exactly that, but it's conditions-based. Just like we're not going to negotiate with Hamas, although this is a giving Hamas terms, there is a clause here saying if Hamas doesn't accept, then this operation continues, and then there will be the International Stabilization Force setting up areas and then taking control. Almost every basically disagreement is covered in this plan. Even the Palestinian Authority question of course, they won't be a part of this until they do reforms. Unlike these European countries who designated a Palestinian state and gave terrorists supposedly in ceremonial a state, this plan absolutely rules that out, saying there is a path. So it almost answers every concern of any individual who cares about the Palestinian people and removes Hamas from the question either immediately or rather quickly, especially with all these other Arab nations signing up going, we agree, and not even listing, Chris, in their agreement, Hamas by name. And that's a telling sign.
I'm with you. Gentlemen, I got to jump. I love and appreciate you both. Thank you for the continuing education on this.
Appreciate it.
And I hope there are pleasant surprises. Aaron, I know the 10 days of awe are going to be ending soon, and I wish you the best for the holidays.
Hey,
Pray
Chris,
for us.
if I wronged you during the course of the last year, you know, one thing about Yom Kippur, it's really cool. You can't just ask forgiveness from God. You got to ask forgiveness from other humans. So to John and Chris, forgive me.
I ask you for your forgiveness first every time you got to look at my face and listen to what comes out of it. Take care, Aaron. All the best. John, be well. 4 minutes and 15 seconds.
Bye-bye.
All right, what matters the most is how you feel about what we're providing for you as a service on the show. So why don't you tell me? 844-968-7720. You know there's only one rule. No comments about Dusty's feet. I get why you want to say what you want to say. Just don't do it. Don't do it. All right, who do you got, Dusty?
Jay from Naples, New York.
Uh-oh. Did you just give me the stink eye because of the feet comment?
Totally. Moving on.
The agony of defeat.
They don't know what you're talking about, and they don't need to know. That's the beauty of this.
Don't
now,
show
let's
them.
move on. We're not going to show them.
them.
We're not going to tell them. We're going to move on to Jay
Don't
from
show them.
Naples, New York. Jay.
Jay, what's your question?
Save me. Gods.
Hello, Jay.
Okay, we're switching calls. We'll switch. Let's drop Jay. And we're going to go to Sean from California.
Sean, you there? You know, ordinarily, this would be very embarrassing and disruptive to someone who does what I do.
Come to me.
But not me. Not me.
Kyle.
You know why?
Kyle.
Experience.
Put me on camera.
That's Dusty yelling at the director.
I wasn't
who's
yelling.
in the same room with her.
I wasn't yelling. I was simply saying, Kyle, come back to me so we got to figure out what we're going to do. Do we have the callers? If you could see what's going on, there's a man here doing signs like this, and I don't know what they mean. Wait, let's ask him. This is real behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is all BTS.
Yeah, behind the scenes. So what they're saying is they're now telling somebody, we have, staff takes vacation.
Your reporting is lackluster.
Well, we have staff filling in for other staff, and I think that they might have put the callers in the wrong column. So let's go to break, and we'll have time for calls if we go to break right now. Oh no, we have Sean. Sean, no break. Sean from California, you there?
Yeah, Chris. Quick question and a comment. Outside of government intervention regulating social media sites, what can be done to clean up the cesspool? And the comment is, can you tell Sam Roberts and Troy Kwan that the butthole surfers are not a one-hit wonder?
Are you still there, Sean?
I am.
What's your second song for the Butthole Surfers?
Dust Devil, who was in my room last night, Pepper. There's three.
You know what? Fair points. I know all of those tracks. Okay, I accept that. Look, here's the truth. I don't know the solution, and I am very slow to make any kind of check on speech, okay? As a journalist, as a lawyer, I'm very defensive on that. But how can it be that there is no level of responsibility for the people who are spreading the most toxicity? As a business plan, Section 230 gives them complete legal impunity. And it would be one thing if it was just, they built the stadium and we all come in and we do what we want. That metaphor doesn't hold anymore. What they built was Thunderdome. The reason that you see people on the left and on the right who are doing well as influencers with digital content, they are all provocateurs. They are all fomenting tension. Why? Because that's what's rewarded by the algorithms. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that doing nothing is literally getting people killed. Literally. You want me to go to break or you got another call?
More calls. No, we can do some more. Benjamin from Fort Worth, Texas.
Ben, what's your question?
Howdy, Chris. My husband and I, we went to an art festival yesterday here in Fort Worth, and we saw at least a dozen artists there that had art that said "Get Luigi'd," that had earrings with Luigi Mangione on it, that had candles that made him a saint, that had, bullet shirts that said fascist on it. How do we get to these young people so that they can separate maybe an idea that people like him had, like let's reform healthcare, from venerating murderers? We were very
What
disturbed.
have they learned? What have they learned, Benjamin? What have they learned from us? What have they seen from us? What have they watched around him? They have seen adults acting badly for profit their entire lives. And while, I'm a big live and let live person, and I remember growing up how people were afraid of the television, the boob tube, as they used to call it. The phone is exponentially more consuming and more corruptive if you want it to be. But what have these guys seen growing up? They've seen us fighting. They've seen us starting wars. They've seen us killing people. They've seen us lie. They've seen us divide for profit. I mean, what do you think you're going to get? Garbage in, garbage out. And the idea of, well, we just got to be better people. We got to be better people. I don't know about the agency argument anymore. Things just keep getting worse. And there seems to be no crisis that is severe enough to bring us together. I don't know what would happen if we had another, God forbid, like 9/11. I feel like, the president would probably blame the other side right away, and we'd be blaming each other. I don't think it would be like it was in 2001. I got engaged 22 days. 11 days after 9/11, I got engaged because of what it made me realize about life and how precious it is. I don't know how I'd feel today. I don't know. Dusty, I wish I had better answers to some of these questions, but I don't think our problem is solutions right now. I think our problem is mustering the desire for a solution. In politics, you get rewarded to oppose. On social media, you get rewarded for blowing things up. I mean, how can you be surprised that, someone's showing up in your timeline for saying stuff about white people or yelling at kids? But that's what gets you. That's what gets you. I see it in our own posts. If I take somebody on and we go at it, it does better. Why? That's what they amplify. I don't know what the solution is.
Well, we should go, but if next time we do calls, there were a lot more callers like that. We'll have our system worked out. They had a lot of questions about that, but we got to go to break.
Well, it's not my
now.
fault. I mean, the system failed me, right? That's a metaphor. We'll be right back. Let me tell you, he's not going to say it this way, but the special Born Lucky that we had on Sunday for Leland's new book, it is a must. I don't know how people get it. I guess they go on the site and they'll find it. But I got to tell you, Leland, first of all, I have to meet your dad, okay? I have to meet him because the commitment and the bond that you guys have is absolutely what I would aspire to, and I think every father would. But what a beautiful story. I just wish you had a better interviewer.
Yeah, well, you can put in your complaints with O'Reilly later. He's on. But Chris is talking about the Born Lucky special about my upcoming book. It's out tomorrow. Chris, thank you. Thank you for your support. On Friday, starting to take off on Amazon. HarperCollins is having to print. They told me double the number of books and then doubled it. Again, because people are hearing this story, and it's not about me. It's about giving hope to parents of every kid who's having a hard time. And I think that's what may have resonated a little bit with you.
What a great contribution. My man, have a good show.
Thank you, Chris.